Yo, guys.
Hey, sir. How are you?
Welcome back.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah.
Hi. It's been cool to see like so many people during the class. It's like in the past it would be we'd have like I don't know, like 25 people, but then half of them would show up. And here sometimes it's between 15 and 20, which is really good. So pretty cool. Thanks for being here. I'm just concerned about tomorrow actually because some of you guys going to be celebrating Thanksgiving. I will too, but gonna have family stuff going on in here, but I gonna be on time for the class. But if you guys cannot make it, I'm not gonna be mad at you. I just didn't want to cancel it. It's like kind of like right on at the last minute, and because some of you guys don't celebrate Thanksgiving because of different countries and everything. So no problem at all. Let me just start this thing here today, showing a comparison here. So this one here, it's the Peter model from the uh, Daniel Boschung website, right? Like the one with the high res pictures. So this is like the model Peter, and this one is Silvano. Obviously, two different people and everything. But in terms of the detail itself, right? Like the type of skin we're gonna be working on, that's the thing that's always tricky, right? Like, what's the age of your character? Um, we're talking about like the pores being super visible, right? Like when you have like a younger skin, and then they start kind of like fading away. You still see them a little bit in here, but they get a little bit more broad, right? Like there's some acne marks in there, but then everything else here, it's kind of like starting to dissolve a little bit, right? But then the nose, you have plenty of stuff going on. You're still gonna have a lot of, sometimes you get like some people, like very old people with a lot of black heads, like really black heads. And then, yeah, a lot of this stuff here, we're gonna have to find out, it's like what's the age of our character, so we can actually add more detail as we go, right? Like, as you age, all the stuff starts to get a little bit more crunchy. But we're going to be focusing on the eye area today. So I'm going to be trying to incorporate a little bit of both because my character probably going to fall in between those ages here, I believe. So, I'm going to start with some of the detail being a little bit more defined, probably like this, but not as deep. It's like going to be kind of like in between this, and probably not a lot of those super high frequency bumps, and mostly going to be like a little bit more of a smooth surface. So yeah, something between those two in here. I'm gonna start by working on this area here. So I'm gonna be doing the blending between the pores and the wrinkles, and then let's see where we're gonna go in terms of reference, right? Like it's amazing, right? That you're gonna have to use this as a reference. Meaning I don't have any reference, right? It's just a blur. So plenty of freedom to to try to recreate something like this, so I can make it up, use the references from other characters like those ones, for example, and trying to come up with something that at the end of the day, when it comes like to the primary and secondary forms, look a little bit more like the like the portrait. But it's always a cool challenge. In terms of the detail, like I said yesterday, I managed to spread it out a little bit. So I added some more all the way around here. I stopped in here because that's kind of like the mask I'm going to be working today. I made sure that I cover this area around the eyes, including like this center area here, and then all the way around the lips in here and everything. So at least like for the stuff we're going to be working today, it's all covered. So detail wise is that thing that I mentioned yesterday, right? Like everything is very simple right now. It's just like this first pass, just put pores, but that's not the final look of the model. Hopefully, right? We're not gonna do something that looks completely plain and not very interesting. In terms of like wrinkles, we just have like the tiny ones. We don't have anything a little bit more major to actually catch your eye when you're looking at the character, right? So everything's kind of plain. It's a little bland, right? So we're gonna try to add more interesting stuff as we go. Probably like jump to a couple of subdivision levels a little bit lower, so we can actually work on the secondary forms and bring some more stuff to life. As
But
a, I'm sorry.
could you, on the Rick Baker, how he has that fold over eyelid,
Uh huh.
could you kind of sometime during the class go over how you would do that? And then second question is,
Mm-hmm.
Do you do the fold over in the original sculpt, or do you wait to topologize and then do the fold over?
I think it can be either way. I mean, like as long as you manage to actually move those vertices right at the wrinkle, the main wrinkle in here, against what you had like in sculpted, right? I think you can do that. But the thing is, like, you have to make sure that the forms are semi-clean when you sculpt just a sketch, because if you have something that's just crunched in there and you have no access to that wrinkle, then it's going to be really hard to snap anything into that. But if you have a little bit of a gap, it's like something you can actually just like select like correspondent points on ZWrap and just like force it to go to that spot, I think it should be fine. Now, one trick I can tell you from the get-go here is this. Check this out. So when I'm sculpting something, a common thing that happens with the eyelids is that a lot of people, they don't sculpt this wrinkle here deep enough. So what happens is that when you look from the profile, it looks completely like straight sometimes. It depends of the person, obviously. It's like if it's an older person, sometimes, it's like if you have like some kind of like a lot of volume going on in here, it kind of like it ends up like filling up a little bit of that gap. But I would say on average, the eyelid has to look a little bit like that. Imagine like if the eyeball is in there, like this, right? And I have like something like this. It's almost like the eyelid is echoing the form of the eyeball, right? And then kind of like it starts like echoing around here, and then it kind of like starts to bulge around it. Same around here. In this case here, I can go a little bit further inside to just like try to get a little bit more conform to the eyeball. It's kind of like an offset. It's a thick surface, but it's actually conforming to the eyeball. And then in the point of connection here, obviously it's going to start like to blend with this external area. But it's always good to understand that there is an eyeball in there. And that's why we need, because the eyeball here, you see like the center of it, it's not actually in the center of, it's like the eyelids themselves. If I get this point as a reference, you see like it's way higher. So the center is around here. So that means when you do any drawing or sculpt, the top eyelid always going to look a little bit more forward than the bottom one. And in the case of my bottom one here, the lower eyelid, I'm going to have to bring it forward a little bit because it seems like it's a little bit too thin, right? We don't want anything that looks super thin. But what I'm about to tell you is this. Check this out. So it's a little trick. So if I'm sculpting that fold in there, sometimes you're in trouble because you're trying to sculpt from the front in here, and you have like, you kind of fight because you hit that little spot right at the wrinkle, but then the areas surrounding it are affected as well, and it becomes kind of like a mess in there. But you can do this, so you can actually, even inside of HD, you still can hide things, right? So you can actually hide everything there. You can go to a couple of subdivision levels a little bit lower than this, and you can do like, you can get your carve brush, and then instead of like sculpting from the front, you go from behind here, and let's say like I do an add. Let's go even lower, something like the lowest I can get, something like that, and then you can actually sculpt this fold all the way to actually get it deeper, So I'm gonna get a little bit sharper around there. So from the inside is actually, you have a much better access to it. It's not gonna be fighting anything around it. So you can just do that. And then same thing, I mean, like if you want to use like a move brush, just make sure you don't use the move topological because you're probably gonna crash things in there. But you can do like, if you do carefully, you can bring this wrinkle a little bit deeper without destroying too much of the rest. So something like that. So when I look from the front now, it's a little bit deeper, So yeah, and then the fold you're mentioning is basically what I try to do. I try to create like separate those forms. So it's going to be hard to do from the high resolution mesh. Let me just get out of HD. Let's see if it works out like this. Okay, so I'm out of HD now. I'm going to go a couple of subdivision levels a little bit lower than that. And again, I'm going to isolate that and skip just the face. Still symmetrical, good. So around here, I try to split a couple of areas here. So if I select just to show you, you see like there is a little volume that's happening around here, but then that's separated from the top in here. So basically like there's this lower part. Imagine that there is the structure, like the bone structure around for the orbital in here. So things that are a little bit more hooked to it. But this area here, everything starts like you can get things to sag quite a bit. So if you want to, for example, like or almost perfect. And so if I have this one selected, I can just reverse it, right? And if you want to hide your mask, you can just press Control H, and it's still there, so you cannot move anything inside of it, right? But it's there. It's just like visually, it's easier to see things. And then with that lock, then I start like sculpting the sagginess of it with the clay build up. So I start like doing something like this, and then I know it's gonna lock right against the edge in there. And I try to always keep like this little bag separated. So basically, like I have this first volume in here. I can go like as slow as I can, depending on the character, and then it goes in this direction here. It kind of like starts to, it's like to sag from this area here. So you always get a little bit of that little form coming from that area, and then you see like right around here there's a depth. I'm gonna make it very exaggerated. So there's a depth in here that's separated from the rest. So I try to keep those forms separated. So at some point you can even use like your move brush, so I can get things to cover it a little bit more. But yeah, that's basically how I approach like this little forms in there. It's like if you have something that has to sag pretty good, it's normally something like this, and then ends up like hiding the lid. Sometimes it hides completely, like if you go really like down like that, right? Obviously, I'm making a little cartoon right now, but the only thing you have to do when you're doing something like this that's covering quite a bit is to go from below and make sure that this is not intersecting. You need a little bit of kind of like it's an offset, right? So it's an echo of the eyelid projected into to this fold. So basically, like he has to conform to it, something like this. So that's the only thing you have to make sure. Otherwise, from other angles, might not work. But yeah, that's kind of like the way they approach like that little wrinkle in there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Just undo this stuff here. All right. Actually, I'd saved before just in case. No, it's all good. I think we're good. Okay, cool. Let me just go back to my HD and then talk about this other stuff. Let's do that. All right.
Should you do a morph target?
No. Yeah, from the beginning here, yes, definitely.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you. Otherwise, I forget. All right. So yes.
Quick question. Can you explain me? I mean, I was trying to use the HD geometry today, and I had some issues selecting or just isolating in the mask area. Could you explain how can I make that circle kind of bigger? Because I was isolating my my polygroups and hitting HD geometry, and it wasn't working. So I would like to know if you have any advice or recommendation for it.
Yeah, one thing I'm going to tell you is that the HD geometry is very, very dependent on the topology itself. So if you have like an area that's very, very dense, let's say, for example, like, let's go back in resolution here. So you see, like I try to keep like the distribution of my polygons fairly even. So the size of the squares are kind of similar. But let's say like for whatever reason, you kept like the pocket inside of the mouth in here. And let's say you had a ton of polygons, so you had like double the resolution in there. So that area, it's going to steal a lot of HD polygons. So one thing to always do, of course, like is just select like the outer shell, right? Like don't select anything that's internal, like pocket, like for mouth or eyes. And then once you have something like this, take a look at the topology that you have in there, because if you have an area that has a ton of polygons, that's going to definitely steal a lot of the topology. And another thing you have to take a look as well is how far you went with your subdivision for HD, right? When I subdivided my HD here, remember that I was pointing out this total points in here as a measurement of how far I can go with my subdivision levels. So when I hit like 95 million polygons, I stopped. So if you look at your total points and you have a much bigger number in there, that means that maybe you subdivided a little bit too much in HD. And in that case, when you go HD, instead of getting like a large area like this, you're probably going to get a smaller area. Another thing you can try is to go to the preferences. Let's see if I remember here. I think it's in memory. Let's see. This geometry. Where is memory? Memory right here. So you see, like I have like HD preview max poly, and it's at 15 here. Make sure you have an amount that's similar to this. You know, it's like probably not more than this. And then yeah, the rest, I mean, like it's all default in there. Yeah, those are the things I can think of. You know, it's like it's the concentration of polygons per inch basically in there, right? Like if it's too dense. The second thing is if you subdivided your mesh in HD a little bit too high. So for example, like a much higher number, let's say like 150 million polygons. So proportionally, when you subdivide, when we enter HD in an area like this, instead of like getting like a large area to sculpt, you're gonna get a much smaller area, and you're probably gonna see just a small circle, you know. For example, like you say, like you're getting a circle with the HD in there. How many polygons do you have in there? When you look at the active points in HD, how many polygons you see?
I think it was, I do not remember, maybe 34.
Yeah, you see like anywhere between 30 and 40. That's basically what you should expect from HD. You're not going to get more than that. So if you're seeing 30 million polygons in there, but the area is small, that means that you have a lot of polygons in that little small area, you know. And it can be either of those things I mentioned, you know, it's like either the model, the total number of polygons at the very end is a very, very, very high number, or you're having like, let's say like some inner parts during sculpt that actually stealing a lot of those polygons instead of just having a shell like this. Or you have like maybe too many polygons in a single area. Let's say like the nose, you have a ton of polygons in the nose, and then the rest you don't, you know, because you're definitely not going to get more than 30 to 40 million polygons per chunk when you sculpt HD. So if you're seeing 30 already, it should be good, you know. It's just a matter of like checking out, you know, if the subdivision levels are according to the planning here, you know.
Okay, that makes sense. I'll try that out. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. In the past, I remember like another student had a similar problem, and it turns out that it was very, very dense. I mean, like he was subdividing much higher numbers, you know, and then he would enter HD and would see just a small circle. And I was like, yeah, but how many polygons? Like, oh, it's 30 something. I was like, yeah, so in that case, you're not going to go further than that, you know.
Okay. Okay.
So let me check this out here. So let's start doing some sculpting here on the eyelids, right? The first thing here, obviously, is going to be that we don't want to do at this point here anything symmetrically, right? The only thing I want you guys to do with symmetry, it's to be able like to apply all the pores in the face, right? That means like make sure that the scale is good, right? It's not like too big or too small. And then make sure that you post some stuff so you can take a look, you know, it's like, or during the review this weekend as well, just like show me, you know, it's like the distance you're using. And if I say like, you know, it's like, go ahead, looks good, you know, just go for it and just try to fill up like this whole, the whole mask basically of the face, right? If you're going for a, how you say, like texture XYZ, same thing, you know, it's like, make sure you cover this entire mask. And then from that point on, then you can break the symmetry as much as you want, you know. So far, I'm trying to keep you constrained to have like everything symmetrical at this point. But once you have the face covered with pores, like at least this mask, you can break the symmetry at any time, because at this point here, even now, I'm going to start sculpting asymmetrically here just for the wrinkles. And then if the model was completely asymmetrical, I could continue to do that. But I'm just not making asymmetrical yet, just because I still have to finish these areas around here, you know. So let's do a little sculpting. So let's take a look at the wrinkles. Are pretty fun to do. So I'm going to start with a few things here. I'm going to do the first pass is going to be like at the lower resolution a little bit. So this is the lowest resolution of my HD, like 500,000 polys for the mask, right? And in this case, I'm going to do it still symmetrically. And I'm going to try to do like use a very low intensity for my carve brush. And I'm just going to try to dig this eye bag in here a little bit further. So you see, like I'm using a very low intensity for my brush, so I can actually dig and add more detail to my secondary forms, basically. So at this point here, not worry too much about the primary ones, right? Just like making this bag here a little bit more visible now. So basically like very, very low intensity brush just to dig it. I could go to a lower resolution, obviously, and do the same thing in there. But at this resolution here, 500K should be totally fine, you know. So I'm gonna just like reinforce those lines. And probably like, let's try to make this one even deeper around here. Also, one thing I forgot to do here, oops, very strong smooth here. This is smooth stronger I'm using. Actually, what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna turn on my stroke lazy mouse again. We turned it off yesterday to prevent that shooting from going like side to side of the model. But just for those major ones here, it's good if I can use some of that so I can actually reinforce them, something like that. So basically, like I'm working on my secondary forms, meaning like those bigger folds at this level here. So I'm not actually destroying any of the pores, right? You can overwrite a little bit here and there, but you see like they are not like high res or anything. And then let's try to get a little bit of this, this area here, a little bit more separated. I'm gonna do very strongly so you can see what I'm doing here. So this area here, I'm gonna kind of like separate a little bit so I can see a little bit of the zygomatic bone kind of like revealed in there, but I'm gonna do it like in a very subtle way, like intensity 3. I'm just gonna split it around here just a little bit. It's too strong. Let's try maybe 2. Go very big. I can go very big with my brush, and just like with the pressure of the mouse, just like the tablet, just like try to dig a little bit more in there, just separate a little bit. And then I'm gonna keep doing this for this area around here as well. Get those bags to reveal a little bit more. And then from the top in here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna bring this this fold that we were talking about before, the one I was sculpting, I'm gonna bring it down slightly, okay? Because right now it's kind of like pretty much offset with the eye in there, right? So what I'm gonna do, let's say like if I can use this, I'm gonna save it before I do, because in the past sometimes this would crash and I really don't want to crash and lose any work anymore. It's sad when you spend like an hour and a half, 2 hours doing work, and then all of a sudden you lose everything. So I'm gonna just save it as a backup in here. And since I am inside of HD, I have to be careful about using this type of stuff. Like for example, like if I'm gonna do a masking here, right? So I'm gonna try to mask this area just to make sure that nothing breaks in here. So let's mask it based on the topology, something like this. I can even control click inside of the mask to just like create a little bit of a fade in there, and then control H to hide it. And then let's just do like I'm gonna bring this whole area here down slightly. So basically this area with a bigger brush, so I don't destroy any of the wrinkles that I have in there or any the pores that I have in there. And I'm gonna try to make sure that this maintains like a kind of like a curvature, right? I don't want to make things like square from the bottom like that. The square has to look just like from the front in here, a little bit squarer, but from the bottom it has to look still pretty rounded and kind of like an offset. And then I'm gonna do that same technique basically. If I don't want to make if I'm using the clay buildup and I don't want to see like those lines like this, obviously I can just switch from this square alpha to something round. And the round alpha, you can use something a little bit larger. Let's see, like maybe like alpha 37 or something like that. And then let's see how that works out. So that way, when you sculpt, you don't see those lines, right? It becomes like a more organic way to sculpt with the clay buildup. I'm just gonna do that. And at this point here, it's a mixed bag, right? I'm sculpting the secondary forms, even though we already have like some tertiary going on. And that's gonna be the story, like all the way to the end of this project. It's gonna be tweaking like primary, secondary, and tertiary forms, which sometimes I refer as like fractal forms, basically, right? Because it's hard to separate when one starts and when the other ends, because everything is relative, right? Like I said yesterday, the example I was using yesterday, in the context of a full face like that, you can really define like what's primary, secondary, tertiary easily, right? But then what happens when you get to an area like this, right? All of a sudden, like this becomes a primary form, and then the secondary form is going to become a little bit smaller wrinkles, and then the tertiary is going to be even smaller. So everything is in the context, right? So it's kind of hard to say like, oh, I'm sculpting the primary forms or the secondary forms. Primary form is in relation to what, right? In what scale? Because to me, it's almost like everything is very hierarchical, and everything is very dependent on the scale you're working. So what I'm doing here is basically like working on the almost like the primary form of this folding here, but then in the context of the entire face, it's basically a secondary form, right? So it's a weird concept, but I think it's at least like it makes sense, you know. It's like it's not something completely cuckoo.
Chris sir,
Yes.
After we have completed like the pores and all, and if we need to make changes to the primary, secondary forms, like using the clay buildup, the move, or the this Damien standard maybe.
Yeah.
So how much would it affect the pores like we have already constructed?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like for a few days, is that as long as you do carefully, for example, like try not to do anything at the highest levels, right? You always go a couple of subdivision levels lower than what you're saying. For example, in my case, this is the lowest I can work inside of HD. So, you know, instead of like 30 something million polygons, I'm at 500,000. And then, so I still can see the pores in here, but I'm not actually destroying them. The only thing you have to be careful is that if you use like move brush very localized, so for example, like something like this, right? You're gonna pull it completely, like, you know, it's like a careless. That's gonna definitely affect the whole thing. But then if you're doing something with a larger brush like this, for example, you should be good. You know, it's like I would not do changes like in primary forms inside of HD. I would go out of HD, go to my very first level or the second level, and work around that, you know, instead of, you know, trying to do anything inside of HD. I'm only working here in HD because I'm just touching tertiary and secondary forms. And I normally sculpt things like grouped, you know. So when I sculpt like when I did the sketch in the first night, you saw that I do like the primary forms mixed with the secondary forms. And then when I do the secondary forms, I do them kind of mixed with tertiary as well, because everything kind of like, they're not independent, you know. It's like everything is very dependent.
And should we avoid using the smooth brush, like after using the clay buildup, like after the pores we have constructed, and you're using the clay buildup right now to like get that fold? Should we avoid using the smooth brush after that?
Oh, I mean, like in this area here specifically, I don't have any pores yet. So yeah, you can use anything you want, you know.
In the areas with the pores, I mean, we should avoid using the smooth.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm gonna use it on purpose here because I have to mix this area here with the details around them. So for example, like if I have those little pores appearing right there, right? So I'm gonna smooth them out a little bit, but then I'm gonna have to go to the highest levels and do the same thing in all those levels just to make sure that they are blending correctly. Otherwise, when you smooth something at the very lowest resolution of something, for example, removing pores, what happens is that those pores start looking almost like a reverse version of themselves when you go to the highest levels, because everything is relative to the amount of subdivisions you have. So every time you go one level higher, they're going to start trying to pop out. You know, it's like you see like the pores look a little funky right there. And as I go higher and higher, they're going to look weirder and weirder. So that's why every time I go a subdivision higher here, I'm going to have to smooth them out a little bit, because I definitely going to need this area here to blend with the wrinkles that I'm about to sculpt. So yeah, it's like if you do this carefully, you know, everything should work fine, like in terms of what you can blend. And yeah, so for example, right here, I'm going to go one subdivision higher, and they still going to appear in there. So I'm going to go and smooth them out a little bit. I don't want them to completely disappear. I just want them to make like to be like very, very weak, so I can actually do a nice blending with the micro wrinkles in here. So let's just do this. You see like this whole area I'm doing here around the eye, there's no pore is going to be visible. You know, it's like it's a big area of buffer. If you look at a reference, for example, like a skull, it's basically like the entire area of the orbital. You know, it's like even goes a little bit higher than this around here. And the pores only start to appear close to the eyebrows again. But this entire area around the orbital bone here, it's completely, you know, it's free of pores, basically. It's mostly like micro wrinkles and other things like that. So even this area here, I have all those pores around here. I'm going to have to eliminate them because yesterday I was actually adding them because I can use whatever area, right, like to just eliminate and create the area of blending here. But in this case here, I went too far. So I'm just going to eliminate, because this area here, we're going to have mostly kind of like some micro bumps and things like that. You know, it's like those little glands filled with the fat tissue that I was mentioning before. But you see, like I'm gonna clean up this entire area, remove pores from here and all the way down here, and now we're gonna start adding some wrinkles. So let's start with some micro wrinkles first. Same thing we did yesterday. So the skin random, the elastic one. And because those are just micro details, we are not going to be concerned about turning off the symmetry at this point. I'm going to just add them and then work asymmetrically in the biggest wrinkles in there and make things a little bit more interesting, right? But for now, what we're going to do here is actually pay more attention to direction. So if I look to his eye around here, for example, he has some interesting, you know, it's like clues about the direction of those wrinkles going that way. And then from here, they kind of like, they almost like create like a boomerang in here, right? So they go inwards and then out again, and they start flaring out. So I'm gonna do something similar to that. This is kind of like it's almost like it's like a baked squint, right? Like although he's not squinting here, it's kind of like, you know, when you squint, you get this kind of like scissoring effect with the eyelid, like the lower eyelid, and the wrinkles definitely go that way. So it's almost like something that was baked over time, right? Like from facial expressions, like, you know, leaving marks after many years doing those facial expressions. So let's take a look here. So I'm just gonna introduce here some directionality, some directioning here with a few wrinkles, but just like nothing major just yet. So for example, I'm gonna come with, let's see, let's get a little bit stronger. Let's try that, it's 10. So looking at the reference in there, I'm gonna just go, oh, I think I have my mask, sorry. It's just hidden. All right, let's try again. Okay, so now it's working. So let's try a little bit less intense, 8. So I'm gonna get some of them going from here to here, just as a reference. I'm not gonna detail anything, just like having some of them so I can actually use as a reference for direction later on. So those guys gonna go around here and they're gonna create like, you know, almost like a boomerang here, right? They go back and then back in here and then go back around here. So something like this. And then when I get to the eyelids in here, we're gonna have those guys going this direction like that. And obviously I don't need to do like super straight lines, right? I can do like a little bit more wobbly like that. So it doesn't look like you know, mechanical, straight, too straight of a line. So something like that. And then for the upper area here, this whole thing here, based on that wrinkle that we were talking about before that forms around there. So this entire area here, when you start to go, you know, it's like all those wrinkles, they start to fade towards the nose in here. So I'm going to start going more towards there. And then down here, start going, changing direction. When you have like an expression, like an anger expression, right? You get those interesting wrinkles that go over here. So you get a fold from the top. You get those other ones that go kind of like that. So this whole area here is inflated on top. So it's just like that kind of, you know, compression that happens in there. So it's basically like following that same kind of direction with those little guys. And then when I get around here, it's going to be the same thing. So I can get some of them starting to cover here and then fade towards that. Same with this, I can actually get some of them to just like cut across very slightly. Really just trying to define some clues in here. So around here, we're gonna have some of those lines, they're actually gonna cut across. So you're gonna start around here and they're gonna cut across like this, right? Some of them are gonna continue around here. Some of them are gonna cut like all the way from the top. I'm gonna cut across the whole thing. So just like a few lines so I can actually have just clues, right? Same with here. I cannot go too strong with them at this point because otherwise your eye is gonna definitely detect all this stuff, you know? So I'm just gonna keep them something like that. And I'm gonna go switch to my skin random again. And I'm gonna add like some finer stuff. And then from the finer stuff, I'm gonna start building the more complex stuff, like the thicker wrinkles. So with those guys here, let's do just like the fine stuff first. Let's try to do, let's see if my spray is at a good 0.10, okay? So let's try it from here to here, a little strong. Let's try maybe 20. Just like filling up and kind of like following that same direction. Something like that. Make sure that everything you see in the surface is actually hierarchically, right? Like it kind of like is not overriding anything that's underneath, right? It has to mix with things, but without overriding too much. I still see too many pores in here, so I'm probably going to eliminate some more of those. You just get this, smooth it out. I don't like all the way to this, to that area that I just defined. Like remember, like I mentioned the zygomatic bone in there. All the way to that area, I don't need any pores in there. I don't want any pores around there because I want to make sure that everything blends. So this stuff here is already too much. Let me smooth it out. So all this stuff has to go around here. And then leave a little buffer so I can actually blend with those micro wrinkles. So let's try one resolution lower than that. Blend this as well.
So can we do this using the morph brush as well if we store the morph target?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. Anything that works, you know, it's like sometimes I even forget that I'm using that, but so like I'm gonna keep doing this and I'm gonna keep going like following that direction that I kind of like sketched before, just following the same direction because we're getting like all those micro details, you know, it's like obviously we're gonna have to keep them small in here just because they're just helping breaking up the surface and everything. But from time to time, we're gonna pick like a couple of them and make it a little bit stronger. So, you know, in order to make sure that everything is blending together, like between the pores and the wrinkles in here. So when I get around here, I'm gonna start actually overriding, going over some of the pores around that area. But then when I get to the carve brushing here, things start to really blend together. But let's just do those ones first. I'm gonna do the same around this area here. So going from here, I can start blending. Let's get a little bit stronger here. Let's try 22. Let's go from the top. So like all the way from the top and then around here. So I'm gonna start to blend all the way. Bringing from that area. And again, like this is all like generic detail at this point. That's why we can do everything symmetrically. Otherwise, we definitely would be paying more attention to how things are too even and symmetrical both ways. And then the interesting thing is that when you get to this area around the eyes in here, those wrinkles, they start to flare out. So you're gonna have like almost like they go around kind of like in a kind of like an array here. So I'm gonna go and then from this position here, I'm gonna start bringing them out, almost like following the direction of the wrinkles themselves when you start adding them in there. So I'm gonna get a little bit heavier with my brush around here. And I'm gonna start to actually dig them going up like this. And actually going over the pores in there. I'm not working in the highest resolution. I'm gonna go to the highest now. So I can get them a little bit tighter. So basically all the way from the top and then starting to work around here. If I show you as a mask, basically like the direction I'm working is this. So this, 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 that's the direction, you know, and then here. And then afterwards, we're gonna start changing the direction of those micro wrinkles because you're gonna have like the actual forehead wrinkles in there. So they're gonna start to actually, all those micro wrinkles gonna go around this way. Right, and then you're gonna have like, and then obviously because of the compression and everything, you're gonna have another set that's gonna go that way. Some of those micro wrinkles gonna go up like that. So it's like it's a lot of different directions, you know. It's like the one I was talking about before. It's around here, right? So there you have like that direction, kind of like that, and then start going this way. So those ones here actually go that way, that way, that way. So it's always like a matter of like finding and kind of like doing a little sketch of the directions first, and then you can just follow with the micro detail, you know. And then once the micro detail is all in place, it's a matter of blending things together, you know. It's never like the case that you're just gonna add one pass and then everything's gonna look magically beautiful. It never does. So it's a matter of like really building all those details in layers, you know. I'm actually adding like from the opposite direction right now. So just bringing those details a little bit more in a circular manner, kind of like following the direction of the muscle in there. And then around here, I'm gonna start to build them up more towards the nose. Around here. And we have to add like all those little bubbles around this area and make it look sweet in there too. This might be a little bit strong in here. Probably gonna do like a morph afterwards and just like clean it up this area. So just like really make everything a little bit more shallow in there. But around here, let's see, let's just get those to mix a little bit more. And then let's sculpt some actual wrinkles now. So now we have a little base in there. We just do a little circular motion here just to fill up with a little randomness. So I have like everything directional so far. Just gonna add like circles like that just to fill up right at the blending here. Same kind of detail we added to the nose yesterday, just like circle, circle, circle. All right, so let's take a look at some main wrinkles here. So let's turn off the symmetry finally. And then we're gonna start sculpting something. Again, gonna be kind of like defining the directions first. So let me get like, look at the reference from both guys. I'm seeing like, okay, so I got both the old guy and the younger guy. And let's see, let's start with the smaller one in here. 10 for intensity. Something like this. I'm gonna go kind of like, I'm gonna break it up. So kind of like, instead of going like a full, all the way same line, I'm gonna break it up from time to time, just add a little thing like that. And then I'm gonna continue around here. Something like that. So just like little clues, you know, and then very slowly, I'm going to start actually adding more depth to it, because at the end of the day, you have to read those forms as being like, basically like this form has to be a little bit more puffy here. And then that puffing is going to end in a sharp line like this, because that was going to be like the deepest part of the wrinkle, right? So it has to show up. But you cannot not like go to the, you know, to a spot that this wrinkle is just barely bigger and deeper than the rest that's around it. It has to be in a way that you actually can see a certain contrast. So even from this distance here, you can actually see that the wrinkle is in there, right? Instead of like doing something that's so minor, like, you know, it's like if you do something like this. Actually, let's see, a little bit deeper. So something like this, you know, this line here is probably not going to show from a distance, you know, it's like it might show just a tiny bit. So it's a matter of like really trying to use those lines to separate those forms, and that's what that's gonna help a lot to define, you know, it's like the difference between the secondary forms and the tertiary forms is when you end those secondary forms with a little bit of contrast, you know, it's like, and by contrast I mean like having a wrinkle that actually shows up like from a certain distance, you know. So around here, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna bring this one here kind of like in parallel. And I'm gonna start like always like a little bit, you know, not so deep, right? Just a little bit of it. And then another one I'm gonna do is gonna start from here. Again, I'm gonna start it, stop around here, then I'm gonna break it up, maybe change the direction a little bit, continue a little bit further, break it, pick another one, and make things a little bit more organic, you know. Same thing around here, start there, break it up. So now I have a few of them in there, starting to add a little bit of detail that's a little bit more interesting. But what I can do now, I can definitely like use some thinner ones around here. And then those ones I want to make a little bit more hero. I can definitely go to a lower res, let's say something like this, and use a brush again to just like dig them a little bit deeper. Let's see, not so strong. So let's get this one here first. So in a lower res, I'm just gonna make this one a little deeper like that, and even add a little bit of that. Just in one spot instead of the whole thing having the same thickness. Just like one spot is a little deeper in here and the rest is okay. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm gonna use the same brush to actually start to build, you know, some of the wrinkles in here. So I'm gonna go down with that. And then around here, I'm gonna start to actually break that area a little bit. I'm gonna go down again. And now here, let's break this one up as well. So everything here is gonna be pretty much idealized, right? Because like I said, I don't have like a direct reference for him. And I have like reference of a guy who is older than he's probably was, and another guy who is much younger. So I'm actually using everything as a reference, but without direct reference, you know, it's like direct copy of anything. So it's just like trying to understand the structures in there and paint my own version of those structures, basically. Painting an impression of what I'm seeing, you know, instead of like, you know, becoming like super literal about it and then missing an opportunity of creating something that's more unique, you know. So let's go back up and let's introduce some of those little bubbles in here that I was mentioning before. So I have a couple of other brushes here. So let's take a look. Let's see which ones I can use. I have like, oh, this pore depth in here. I can show you. Basically, that's the one I was using for adding, you know, asymmetry to the pores. Basically, what I did, I created a elastic brush. So you start with elastic brush, same deal. If you've never done this, right, you go to your brush, pick the elastic brush in there or here, right? Pick the elastic brush. So press E, so elastic, and then you copy it first. So brush clone, right? And then once you clone it, you're gonna add those settings right here, which is basically the drag rectangle and a simple little alpha in there. Yeah, it can be like, I think like maybe like 38, something like that, or 37 I used. And for the alpha, I have a little bit of a curvature like that. So what this one does, I've used like 42 for intensity. So if you apply it in an empty area like this, you don't give much. It looks kind of like this, right? If I do the reverse of it, with a Z sub, so I get something like this. So what I do, because it's elastic, I use it to help my pores. You know, if I want to add more depth in certain ones, I can even like do like a little bit less than that. Let's see, 38. So if I pick this one here, for example, see, I can actually control how far it goes. So I can actually do like this kind of like acne little marks, you know, it's like just pick a few of them. This is going to be later on, obviously, we're going to be doing a pass that's just like to make things a little bit more organic and not so even when it comes to the skin. There are all the, you know, the pimples and things like that. But those guys really help to actually bring up, you know, it's like especially like around this area here for the cheeks, right? Like to just like get those guys, a few of them, much deeper. You know, so like from a distance, you start seeing a little bit of a difference right there. You know, get a little bit of a difference just like by adding those little guys here and there. So a similar thing we're going to be doing, it's going to be around like those little bubbles around here, this area. So same thing, like you can use an elastic brush. Let's see if I have one in here. Intro Pimple Elastic. So same deal. It's just a different alpha. I'm not sure which one that is because I wish ZBrush actually recorded the number in here, but I don't think it does. So it just like says brush alpha. But it's one of those guys here, I think, from 49 to 51, one of those. And then the way it works is basically like this. You see, like it has a fall off that looks more like this. So it kind of like this is the base of it. This is the top. So I made this curvature to look like this, right? So instead of like the pointy one, that's basically the one I was using to create those little deeper pores. This one here is more brown like this, right? So this one is pretty cool because you can actually use lower intensity. Let's try maybe like 36. Let's see if it's too little. I think it's actually something like around 40. And then, for example, I can go to this area here in the inside of the eye. And we're going to start actually adding some of those around here. So I'm going to create like something like that. I can actually add some variations for the scale. And those guys can help, you know, it's like I use some of those pimples. I'm going to do symmetrically here for you to see around this area here for the eyelids, eyelashes. So for example, like right around the edge in here, some of them like that, not like in a perfect line, you just like go a little bit higher or, you know. But the interesting thing is that I can add some of them more randomly like this. But if you want to have like perfect alignment with the eyelashes themselves, I can show you how to do this as well. You know, it's like once you have the XGen in place, we can export the XGen as OBJs, bring it in here, and then sculpt like those little dots in here right against each one of them. And it actually adds a nice kind of like blend between the skin and the eyelashes. So if you're doing like a close-up shots and stuff, you can actually get some nice effect, you know. But those ones are a little bit more random in here. I'm doing. So, you know, it's like you can use this brush for multiple things. You can do like those tiny little dots like that. And then you can go lower in intensity and just add like those bigger ones around this area here. So we're going to add some of that. And the other thing you can do, obviously, is to use like the clay buildup with, let's try clay buildup with the round alpha, right? So basically like 37, something like that. And then you can go maybe like go to a subdivision level a little bit lower again, and then, you know, add stuff like this. So I'm going to go to a lower intensity, and I'm going to try to build up some of them. In this case here for him, I noticed that he has some longer ones. So I'm going to build some longer ones like that. And the cool thing about the clay build up as well with the round brush like this is you can create like little bridges. And what I mean by bridges is, you know, it's like when you have a cavity like this, right? You have a little valley in there. You can actually start, you know, with the clay build up in a round alpha. You can start from the top area here and just like build a little bridge between like those two parts, you know. So basically like you start blending the lower part to the top one just by doing that. And then you can actually start like blend things in there. I'm actually symmetrical again. I have to be careful so I don't add too much detail that's completely symmetrical. Otherwise it's gonna defeat the purpose here. And then remember those little lines that I defined just for the direction in here? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna build some of those bridges as well. I'm gonna turn off my symmetries before I mess it up. And then I'm gonna build some of those guys. They start to blend with, you know, it's like right where you have those little valleys in here. You got like a little bridge built in there. Try not to make things too parallel to each other, right? So from time to time, add a little bit of a diagonal and then break things up a little bit. So let's try that. Before I forget, let me get to this side here too, because sometimes, you know, it's like if you're switching tools all the time, and then you try to match a side that you sculpted much earlier, sometimes you kind of like lose the mojo, you know, it's like all of a sudden like you don't remember exactly what brushes or how you did it. So I'm just gonna go like instantly here before I forget what I'm doing. So I'm just gonna build some of that. Same around here. And then everything here, we're gonna start like very, very slowly building up all this detail so they can actually talk to each other, right? Right now you see like things are not very well connected. I mean, like there's some like, you know, clues about what's gonna happen in there, but then those things are not yet talking to each other. So let's get to the carving brush again. So let's do some more refinement. Let me just switch to this other eye in here again so I can see what I'm doing there. And then, so let's go around here. And I'm still at the lower resolution at 1.9. It's going to go a little bit higher than that. And I'm going to try to carve now. Use a C sub around here. So I'm going to add a little bit more detail now. And then this detail, I can start actually to break up and, you know, like find little clues, all those little micro details we added in there. It looks a little abstract in a way, but they give ideas, you know. It's kind of like seeing like, you know, it's like some sheep in the clouds, right? You're going to start seeing some of those little patterns. They're going to kind of like reveal themselves, and then you're just going to follow whatever you're seeing. And then you're going to be able to actually detail things a little bit better. You know, you kind of use the direction as a clue, and then you start like blending things in. Let's do like from here, I'm going to start to actually blend everything with this area that's still very, very plain, very, very simple. So I'm going to just like, again, like for this area here, maybe add some more like smaller wrinkles coming this way. And kind of like almost like having a crisscross effect in here. So coming from the top, right there. Important thing is that they don't look like they are all, you know, too parallel to each other, or like, you know, it's like too repetitive. They have to look like they have some of their own identity here, right? Something like that. Let's get some of them here too. Make a little bit deeper. And then let's pick up like something around here. Let's start another wrinkle, maybe slightly in a different direction, and then break it up. When I get to this area around here, then we're going to start actually, let's blend them with in both sides at the same time, because they're going to be kind of similar. So let's try symmetrically. So right around this edge here, you see like I'm starting with the micro wrinkles. So I'm going to get them and get a little bit bigger around here, this area. So I'm going to start to actually carve towards each one of those pores. So I'm going to find some of those pores to connect the little dots in there, right? Play that game of connect the dots. And again, like the way I'm sculpting, I'm trying not to be too repetitive or parallel. So the lines, they can be like longer from time to time, change the how diagonal they are in relation to each other. And then when you get to the pores themselves, you can actually continue with them a little bit lower. So some of them are going to get a little longer and some a little bit shorter in there. So from time to time, you can start this with pick like one that's a little bit longer. It starts all the way up there and then kind of like starts to blend towards those little guys. The important thing is that you make sure that this transition between things here, you know, it's like the more you work on it, the more you're going to start seeing that things going to start to integrate, you know. It takes time, obviously. Like this whole area here, we're going to have to add all those micro bubbles and things like that. But the important thing here is that you understand that it's just a matter of like blending. Let's see. Something like that. Let's see. And yeah. All right, so let's try a little bit more here and then go a little bit deeper. Let's see. Let's try to get some other type of detail here as well. I can actually use, I think, a little bit more randomness, this whole area. But let me just pick a few of those. Yeah, I cannot make too symmetrical at this point. I'm still like, still a little symmetric right there. But let's work just on this side here. And then later on, I can just finish the other one. But I'm just going to do, let's see how far I can go with those wrinkles. So let's get those ones a little bit deeper around here. And then again, like I can continue some of them and right around that edge, I can change direction from time to time. So this one here, I can actually split it. Let's try around here, some extra ones.
Well, it's kind of like the lines in your palms.
Yeah.
Unravel and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a very, I mean, like those classes, obviously, when I'm trying to talk and do the work at the same time is not the easiest thing. But if I have like my headphones, it's like I just zone out, man. And then it's just like, yeah, it's just, I don't even think about it. And it becomes like, second nature, like just like you go for it. And then you can actually figure out when things are starting to look a little fake. And then you go back and add another pass on top of it. But yeah.
It's like meditating,
Yes, it is.
doing the art. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely, man. It's like it's a therapy, It's like I don't know if you're old school in CG. If you guys are around for a long time, you're probably around like from the time of the CG talk forums and everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pushing point vertices.
Yeah, exactly. So you probably know Meyer, right?
I have heard of him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Super like intricate, crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, he did a few of the covers for the Maya software, right? And he used to be like a airbrush artist. So he does like those gigantic panels like airbrush. Like he has done one like at Noman that was like right at the tiki place that they have in there. They do their parties, or used to do it before the pandemic. And he has a big panel in there he did with airbrush. And Meets like was one of the first guys I remember like meeting online, because just try to imagine, I mean, like I came out of nowhere, right? So I just like a guy working in a bank. I was working in a bank, and I started posting stuff online, like a short movie I was trying to learn with. I mean, like I started a short movie without knowing exactly what I was doing, and I used that as a benchmark to actually try to learn all the aspects of like animation and texturing and everything. And I ended up like posting at CG Talk at some point, and I got the front page in there, and I got lots of interesting contacts. Blizzard was the first company that contacted me, and I didn't speak English back in the day. That was like 17 years ago. So it was like it was a mess. It's like the interview was pretty bad because I didn't speak English. The person who was supposed to help me, she barely spoke English in Brazil, and but the interesting thing is that Meets was one of the very first artists who contacted me. And he was one of those guys. He had a website that was very well known. And I remember that he posted, he plugged my website to his website, like with the link. And then he said, in the link, he said something like one of the best animators, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, I've just started this whole thing. It's like, it's kind of weird that someone well-known post that about you. I thought it was, it didn't fit the bill, because you have like this thing about, dude, I'm not good, But I remember when I first came to the United States in 2004, again, like that's the year I started to learn English, like, I barely could speak at all. But I remember like during one of my attempts of a conversation, I was with Meyer at Noman. It was right before a presentation I had to do, actually, which was kind of suffering. And Meets told me, he asked me about like relationship or something like that, right? My wife was still in Brazil. And I said like, yeah, man, it's just like, it's so hard, it's like being apart and all this stuff. And the term that he used was that art was my mistress, right? He said like, art is your mistress. And he said like, no matter what happens, it's like with relationships, whatever it is, your art is there for you, and it's very true, man. I went through some pretty crappy like breakups and stuff, but art was always there. Art and games, basically. The games actually saved me as well. But it's like being able to create art, it's like, it's always like something that, it's like you said, is a meditation to me. It's like it's part of my therapy. I would go insane if I wasn't doing anything. Yeah, it's very important, man.
I agree. Yeah, I get a little crazy if I don't create for a few days or weeks, and then I start to do something and I realize that I'm channeling the energy, and I'm calm, and I'm in that zone.
Yep.
I'm sure we all could relate. Yeah, it's definitely get bottled up if you don't keep at it.
Yeah, man, it's like the whole thing about finding balance in life, right? Like, I mean, like I feel like sometimes my life is very unbalanced. I feel like sometimes I'm a crappy father or a crappy husband. It's like, or I'm being a crappy artist because I'm not dedicating as much as I should, but then it's a matter of like, it's like I go in cycles, and my wife recognized that on me a long time ago. I was complaining about, I don't know, I'm feeling like I'm not producing enough and blah blah blah, and then she totally got it. It's like she said, "What are you talking about? You're just doing a lot of photography very recently, and before that you're doing some programming, and before that you're building furniture." So it's not like you're not doing it. It's just because you're taking your cycles. It's like I get very interested, for example, in building like furniture or something we need for the house, and then I build it, and then I'm done with that, and then I start poking around with electronics, and then it's like for example, like video game stuff. I have a collection of old consoles, and I love like emulation stuff, so I kind of like poke around that as well. So I go in cycles, and then all of a sudden like 2 months go by and I didn't do any like artwork, and then I was like, it's time to go back. So I get obsessed with that, so I just do that for a while, and then I get tired again, so yeah, it's it's just life, man.
Yeah, I relate so much. Like I'll clean or I'll fix things. I'll build little, instead of going to buy something, I'll make something and get into that like a scientist,
Yeah, no,
and it's
man.
just another way of channeling, like getting microscopic and looking at, how can I use this tool to make this? Or
yes.
Yeah, I love it. I do that a lot. I just greased all the hinges in my house recently just because I wanted like all the doorways. I'm like, I got WD-40, let me go make this right, fixing things.
Oh man, I love it. I mean, like imagine like I was a kid, man, like I was raised in an apartment, so we didn't have like a house to walk to run around or anything. And as an adult, it's like after finally having money to do something, our family didn't have a lot of money, then buying power tools and stuff and learning how things work and doing lots of tutorials online. I got really fascinated with the do-it-yourself stuff, and I got really obsessive with that at some point. And I mean, like when we bought this house we live in, that was like 9 years ago. I really got like, I was like, I need to learn how to do it because I'm going to be the one maintaining this, especially in Marin. It's like you pay someone to do anything. It's like, oh yeah, it's $1,000. It's like, what the hell? It's like Marin is insane. But yeah, I mean, like I think like either you go through life just like, it's like it's a bus. Life is a bus. You're just like watching from the window and just watching, or you can, from time to time, you just like go outside of the bus and explore, it's like, and do something about it and learn something different instead of just being passive, yeah, I like to imagine like that I'm always trying to learn something new, but again, like I have way too many interests, it's like if I put all my energy, let's say like in CG, I would be doing much better, I think, but it's like I have way too many things, and being a father too, it's like it's such a huge project.
Yeah. But I think that wave of like you said, like you're doing photography or you're building and you're doing construction with wood, and then you're like excited to get back to the digital. I know what you mean.
Yes, definitely, man.
I think it's a refresher. It's probably healthy, a good refresher.
Yeah, definitely. I get like hungry for sure. Let's see. I'm just like my hand is hurting a little bit. I'm just showing like what I did here so far. But all this stuff gonna get more and more refined, obviously. But just like for a quick break, let me just show you this. Let's see. Back up. Let's try this.
Chris, good question.
Yes.
So regarding what you're talking about, what's your perspective about the future of what we're learning or what we're doing right now in terms of the CG and those techniques, and like having in mind this virtual production that is coming out? And so what's your perspective in the years that are coming?
That's a good question, man. Like, I think there's we always going to have room for someone who has like a talent to create something. It's like either I've seen like so many of my modeler friends become like concept artists. So if you can do something that's more creative, I'm pretty sure like some director are going to appreciate you creating something, that doesn't exist, or, which is kind of like almost impossible these days. Everything is recycled. But, it's like being a good artist in a way that you can actually come up with stuff that doesn't exist. Like, for example, like come up with like a skin that never existed, and you can build some skin, or build up like a creature that never existed, you know. There is always space, I think, for talent, you know. It's like, even when you have like the best technology out there, I'm gonna just use an example here. One thing that happens with the industry is that those companies, especially the large companies, they compete for, it's kind of like a marketing kind of thing, you know. They want to compete for clients, right? So the clients have to trust that that company is going to be able to deliver the best possible result. So what happens sometimes is that there's a lot of bullshit, right? For example, like if there's an interview in a magazine or a website or something, it's you can pay attention, man. Like, almost every time is about like the technology, you know. It's like, oh, we did the entire project was about like the brand new mock-up like a motion capture that we just developed with those brand new cameras and blah blah blah, and that did like the whole work for us and blah blah blah, right? But then you talk to the people inside of the studios. I spoke to people at Weta and even at ILM, you know, and then it turns out that behind that whole thing, you know, it's like they're talking about like all this technology that did everything automatically. It was a bunch of artists, like minions, doing a lot of stuff manually, right? So no matter how good the technology is, or people try to pretend it is, there is always someone, you have to have someone talented, either with programming or with the modeling skills or something, to make sure that things are actually working, you know. So I think like we always gonna need talented people in this industry. Now, I don't think like we're gonna have space for a lot of people who are not, let's say, like if you're doing the same as everyone else, it's kind of like, it's almost like you're not gonna be that necessary at some point, you know. And by that I mean like let's say like digital doubles, right? You're building digital doubles and everything. So there's a huge demand for that. But at the same time, India and China, they are doing a lot of that stuff already. You get a lot of stuff done over there. And if you're in the United States, you're probably like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to have a job at some point doing that, right? But then if you get more specialized, let's say like, okay, a digital double is one thing, but then what about like a very realistic digital double? Something that, you know, is like it's still like the holy grail, right? Like something that we are trying to look for, something that, you know, it's like it's really outstanding. Sometimes, very rarely, you see something in the movies that we are like, okay, that's actually, you know, that convinced me. That specific shot, it never holds up the entire shot, like, or the entire movie. But at some specific shots, you look like, yeah, I can buy that one, right? So I think, you know, it's like doing this kind of work here, although we are doing a much more artistic approach, which is basically like everything is done by hand. I think like it still has a lot of value, because we're the ones training our eyes, observing reality, you know, it's like, and really trying to capture those things. And then when you get to a production, for example, you're like, okay, I observed that a lot. I know the direction of those wrinkles. I know those things here. And you can be kind of like, I think, you know, it's like be valuable in a way, that way, you know, it's like to do something a little bit more high end. Up to a couple of years ago, either you're like a visual effects artist or you're a game artist, basically. And then all of a sudden, when the game the engines and everything became so good and so advanced, all of a sudden, like I started to get like contacted by, you know, multiple companies, like video game companies, asking me if I want to jump ship, basically, right? Just move from visual effects to AAA games, because you carry like that experience with the more realistic stuff. So yeah, in short, man, I think like there's always space for talented people, you know. But you have to make sure that you're doing something that make you stand out from the crowd, you know, which is always like tricky. I would say posting stuff is very important, like having a presence online, like Instagram, Facebook, and Artstation, right? And make sure you create something cool, you know, like the amount of work is not that relevant. Like I see people going crazy with you know, it's like the lunch crunch stuff, right? Lunch crunch. And then they post like every day, there's like 1 or 2 models every day. And that's cool. Okay. So you're super fast and everything, but can you finish anything? Because in production, you're going to have to finish something, right? And then, you know, it's like, you don't know. But I would say like for people trying to get like to a portfolio and have something like a better chance of being hired, I would say instead of like doing like lots of lunch crunches, uh, make sure you have one or two projects, you know, it's like lined up, something you can get excited about it. It can be a creature, it can be a human, whatever it is, but something you know you're going to be pushing yourself the whole time. And then let's say instead of like having something done in a few weeks, you set a target for yourself, like, okay, I want to have this one done in 3 or 4 months. And even if it takes 6 months, you know, it's like at the end, you're going to have something that you're more proud of, because people, they forget about like the quick sketches, unless it's something that's really masterful, right? Something that's done masterfully. But people don't forget like iconic pieces, you know, it's like something that really connect with whoever is watching it. You know, it's like if it's a striking character, you have you know, the eyes look really alive. You know, there is something going on, like even if it's just a portrait, but there is a little bit of a story behind. You know, it's like can be like a symbolic thing, like a prop or something in the environment. Like you're talking about yesterday, like the skull, right? Like from Ian Springs, you know, it's like the skull. You know, it's like the person being portrayed holding his own skull is very symbolic, right? Something that can, you know, it's so important that you guys remember that, right? You brought that up yesterday. So, you know, it's like make something that's interesting. You know, it's like people love to you know, it's like to be told stories, right? That's why we watch the media. It's just stories, man. A bunch of them are all lies, but we are like entertained with the news cycles. You know, it's like, oh, what's the shit happening today? What's Trump doing today, right? Like entertained by stories all the time. And but you know, it's like I never make my work like political, you know, at all. I think like it's a much more noble media to produce better, you know, create better feelings in people than just like making people pissed off. And I see some people using this type of media, like, you know, it's just for political activism, like constantly. If it's once in a lifetime, you know, it's like one, you know, it's like a year or something, fine. But some people just constantly hammering with this stuff, man. It's like, dude, you're not changing the world. You know, the game is rigged. Just move on. Anyway. But yeah, I think that's it, man. It's like the important thing is that you like what you're doing. You know, it's like if you're passionate about what you're doing, if you put your soul somehow into your work, I believe this firmly. You know, it's like if you put your soul in whatever you're doing, but I mean, like put some of your focus. You know, it's like pay attention. You know, it's like make sure that things are interesting. I believe that the public can see that. You know, it's like there is a connection that happens with whoever is watching that. And I think that that has to do with movies too. You know, I've been working in movies like for 16 years now, and like 32 movies, so like almost like 2 a year. And I tell you, like industry that's this old already, you know, it's like that exists for a long time. They should have a formula that works every time, right? Like I mean, like you would think of, they should have a formula that works every time, and they think they do. That's why they keep recycling shit, right? Like they think they do. But the thing is, like, there's one thing that there's no formula. Either a final piece has a soul or it doesn't. And the soul can be completely destroyed. I mean, you can start with a project that has a soul, but then during the editing process and like people chopping things off, you know, it's like doing the, you know, it's like the decisions from the directors and stuff. It ends up like missing that that thing that makes people connect to the piece. And at the end of the day, you have a movie that costs like $200 million and it's a flop in the box office. You know, it doesn't have an interesting story that makes anyone connect. You know, yeah, it's like it's always a matter of connection. That's how you sell a product. You know, it's like connecting with the people. So I would say like if the product is yourself, right? Like in this case, you're the product because you're selling your artwork, your talent. You have to make sure you connect with your audience. You know, it's like through producing things with your soul, you know, it's like putting really like some effort into it. So yeah.
So in the end, we're just salesmen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, salesman. But yeah, it's like that's the thing that's interesting, isn't it? Back in the day, like when the Greeks were doing all those amazing sculptures, you go to the Louvre, right? You see those beautiful sculptures from the Greeks, and they are basically all anonymous people, right? We don't have like signatures or anything. More towards the medieval times, you know, it's like, and then towards the Renaissance and everything, artists became important in a way that, okay, like this is the guy who actually did that piece because he's signed and everything. Before, artists were just artisans, right? We are just like the lady making the pottery stuff. There's this guy who makes this marble sculpture here, right? Just like very like artisans. But then we have this thing about like, oh, we are artists, we're so much better than the other people. We actually, I don't think we are, right? Like we are no better than a dentist or someone else doing something else with their lives, you know. But the cool thing is that you know, it's like visual artists and musicians, we have this power, which is to communicate, right? Like to connect with other people through what we do, symbolically or whatever it is. A dentist is not going to have that power. You know, they're going to have the power to scare you, probably.
They get paid more.
You're definitely right, sir. You know, you did the Dick Smith and the Rick Baker.
Mm-hmm.
I showed it to one of my cousins who's not from this field, and he wouldn't believe me that it wasn't a photograph. He was like, "This is photograph, man." I don't know. He's done by one of the masters from the industry. Even today, he asks me like, "Did he come up with something new?" Now I'm glad that I'm in the class.
Oh, and it's the kind of work that I still plan to revisit, you know. But I want to show you this little project here. So since we were talking at tangent in here, and then I'm going to go back to the sculpting. But check this out. This I did a few years ago. I would say like 5 or 6 years ago. This is a digital pinball machine, full size. So the one on the right is my actual pinball, is a Monster Bash. But this one here is a 40, I think it's like 42 inches plasma, not plasma, LCD TV. And this is a 32 inches TV. So it runs on emulators. And I have like 50 machines inside of this. And the thing is, like, everything is connected with mechanical parts. So I have like a nudging system, so I can actually nudge the digital ball by moving the machine. So all the lights are actually physical lights. I have like some of the how you say, like solenoids inside that make all the mechanical sounds. This was my kid. He was probably like 4 in here. He's now 10, so it's definitely like 6 years ago. But check this out. Like, I built like this control panel that you can actually plug to the top of the machine with the suction cups. And then it's basically a USB. And then, but I have like the whole log here. I mean, like, it has a shaker motor inside. So it shakes the whole machine depending on the thing, the game. Those are the connector, the contactors that make the sound, mechanical sounds. And I put the Easter eggs inside like this, inspected by Matias Costa, which is, you know, who is my son. So one day, if he opens up those things, he's gonna find those things. Back in the day, I was thinking about making the theme of Rango because I worked on the Rango movie, but then I changed my mind. But everything, man, it's like, if you look at the whole thing, it's like,
you're too smart.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do any of this, man, and I just like doing research, you know,
learning
over and over again.
That's all self-taught. Most of that is self-taught.
Yeah. So
super inspiring.
It's great, man.
So basically, like, that's how it started. I was painting in the front yard like this, and then my neighbors would start, like some old ladies, you know, I was like, "Is this a pinball machine?" I was like, "Yep, it's gonna be." But like, it started like that. I didn't do a lot of woodwork back in the day, so that was kind of like one of my first projects, doing like full-on woodwork with a router and everything. So yeah, like, really went to town with this thing, and it works great. I mean, like, has a computer inside, and but then this one here, check this out, my backyard. That was like last year. That was like 2 years ago. I didn't know how to build a deck, but then I, you know, found like some plans and everything, and started building it. I bought all the material. I built this pad in here to install the hot tub. So we got the hot tub, and this is the final product. I mean, like, I got built the deck from scratch, installed the hot tub myself. Like, some people are charging like almost $3,000 to do the wiring. And I got like some copies of the National Code of Electricity. And I was just like, okay, so what type of wires I need, blah, blah, blah. This was the backyard before, you know, and it was just like a blank slate. And then that's, you know, with everything installed in there. So yeah, dude, like, I don't stop myself from doing anything as long as I have some money to do it. But yeah, and then this one here this one is another one. It's a little mini arcade machine with a Raspberry Pi inside. This one is also, I would say, like 5 years ago. Nowadays you can buy those things built already, but this is a unique piece. It's all like it's all plexiglass.
That's tiny.
Very tiny. It's like 8 inches tall total. This is like the coin door.
Dude.
And then
did you do any 3D printing or no? I don't think so, right?
No,
you can 3D print it now.
Exactly. Nowadays would be so easy, right? But when I built it,
that's cool, man.
When I built it, was actually
really cool.
plexiglass like this. So it's all plexiglass, and it just like yeah. But yeah, dude, like, I, you know, learning things, you know.
So cool.
And then this one here is actually a good one. I had like this kitchen that looked like this before on the left. And then I built this entire pantry in here, matching the same styles for the doors. So I had to learn how to use the router and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I bought the router bits that actually match it. So
Wow.
this table I built as well for our kitchen because I wanted something with the rolling, you know, it's like, so it has wheels in it. But this is like all the woodwork I did, like and I showed this like to a guy who came here to do some work in the house. Like, man, this is professional work. I was like, no, dude, this is like first time. But this doors here, for example, I built them from scratch. I got like the planks and I used the biscuit joiner and just like attach all those planks to each other to create those large panels. And then I just routed the whole thing. So this is all from scratch. Like that.
That's
like
My
that.
wife's doing the same thing.
What's that?
My wife is doing the same thing.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Love this is like, it's lovely stuff, man. I mean, like I always talk to people, you know, it's like the whole thing we learn about CG work, right? Imagine like in the case of a zombie apocalypse, and that's symbolical, obviously, not zombies, but just look at recently, right? Like the society going into chaos because of toilet paper, right? There is like some cases in the East Coast, like a couple of years ago, that because of the heavy snow, it was basically a zombie apocalypse. People are just like going to the stores and buying everything, you know? And then I just imagine, you know, it's like if society goes to shit altogether and all of a sudden like your money is not worth anything anymore. And all that matters is your skills, you know? It's like just like in the old times, for example, like let's say you have a neighbor and the neighbor is great at cooking bread and you have no idea how to do it, but you actually can fix some shit in their house, you know? And then you can just exchange, you know, it's like services basically. So that's going to be like the currency in the case of like a total collapse of society. And then all of a sudden, man, your whole life you spend like 30 years doing CG, for example. What do you know when you turn the computer off, right? I mean, so that's why I kind of like started to get more interested in doing manual stuff. First, because the feeling, nothing replaces it, right? Like to be able to hold in your hand like the product of your work, it's something very special. But yeah, this whole thing about like rescuing a little bit of the manual work, you know, that's why I do these things mostly manual, you know, because I want to rescue that love for the art itself, you know, instead of like just getting to this kind of like a, you know, a hole that we got, that's everything is kind of automated, right? Like you get all kinds of tools to do all kinds of stuff when it comes to CG. You know, we didn't have a ZBrush many years ago. Everything was like moving point by point, right, on the surface, and now everything is so easy. And then it seems like we get lazier and lazier the easier the things get. And then the plan here is to actually try to, you know, use those things and how easy they are to use, but make them a little complicated again. You know, like try to, you know, on purpose actually ignore some of the new stuff coming up just for the sake of keeping yourself human, you know.
Yeah, like keeping the exercise. I used to do hand sign painting, you know, lettering and
oh, those are awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and you know how it used to be a trade, you know, and then it's like when computer digital printing and vinyl stickers, and
yes,
you start seeing all these signs that look like crap, all the font, there's a million fonts, and there's this authenticity that's kind of lost, you know. And
exactly,
even just studying the letter, like understanding the curves and what makes a letter's theme or why does it feel a certain way. A lot of people skip that because they don't just study the micro curves, like the slow, you know, when you're trying to push that brush to make an S, you notice the nuances and differences of various S's. But if you're just typing it on a computer and just bashing stuff, it's kind of like that AI. Once it's done for you, there's a human element that's gone, you know. Even a wiggle in a line is, you know, there was a human there.
Exactly,
instead of a crisp vector, you know, or vector shape, you know.
Yeah, I tell you one thing that actually is the thing that actually keeps me awake at night sometimes is the you know, it's like the future of our humanity, you know. It's like thinking about like this escalation of the technocracy, you know. It's like this whole thing about, you know, it's like a Skynet being built, you know. And a couple of years ago, I would think like, oh, that's a little exaggerated. But nowadays, seeing what Google has in terms of power, it's like, and like the power they have, like to control the speech and all this stuff, like shutting people off and then everything, like if you start putting like those agendas together, it's like in terms of what Elon Musk is promoting with more like a transhumanistic kind of approach, it's like mixing organic like us with machinery and everything. I think it looks it sounds pretty sci-fi and cool, right, on the paper or when you watch a movie. But when you bring this to our reality, it's quite scary, it's like to think that, okay, do I want to go that way? Do I want to become something else, or do I want to preserve my humanity? It's like, I would say like I like being a human. I don't know if I want to be part machine or something,
Plus, people will probably try to hack you, and I'm not interested in that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's hilarious that people fight over their privacy.
Uh-huh.
They don't realize they give it away a long time ago.
Oh, they did. Yeah. Well,
and they give it out every day when they post on Instagram and Facebook all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like it's a stretch, right? Like between knowing that you are not like you don't have your privacy anymore in there, and then allowing, for example, for some future, it's like that your body somehow is modified. It's like to me it's a little bit too stretch. I mean, like, okay, we already know that you're tracking all our data, that we are the product, right? Because if you're not paying anything on Facebook, it's because you're the product. But it's like it's a big stretch to me to think about like a transhuman kind of future. It's like where we're gonna have to, it's like they keep like every single movie I've watched with science fiction and stuff. It's almost like that was almost like how can you say, a social experiment. It's like to see how people reacted to those ideas, and then to see if that can be implemented at some point. And I believe a lot of stuff we saw in sci-fi movies not even that long ago, it's like a lot of this stuff like is completely available nowadays. It's just a matter of like, okay, will the public go with this? The powers controlling this world, I mean, like are they gonna have any interest to implement that like on a full scale, right? Like I don't know, man. Like if it's for power and profit, I think those guys, they don't have a lot of of heart. It's like I tell my friends, I mean, like in order for you to be a billionaire, you have to be a little bit of a psychopath or a lot of a psychopath, because you're not going to achieve a lot of stuff without if you have a lot of empathy. So if you have empathy for other humans, how can you bend your own ideas about like let's say like I have a chance to transform the human race for good, right? I'm just like being hyperbolic here, but then how can I do this if I'm fighting myself because I care about the humans that I'm talking about, right? So but if you remove that, I mean, like if you're a psychopath, you can emulate that empathy and you can tell everybody that, oh my god, I care about you so much, just like all the politicians, right? And but deep inside, I don't give a shit. I mean, like it's about like how much I can profit of it, or So yeah,
power or money.
What's that?
It's just power or money.
Yeah,
they care about that more than people.
Oh yeah, exactly, man. Imagine like if you're it's like in the past I would have these ideas about it's like how can these people like sleep at night, like evil people doing shit, it's like all those dictators and all these people who put people in concentration camps in the past and everything. And I think like, how can these people sleep at night? And then at some point I realized like they can sleep like little babies, because the way that they think about their notion of right and wrong is completely different from the average human, So I'm pretty sure like in their minds they're doing the perfect reasonable thing. Every time they do some shit like that, they're being completely reasonable without their own twisted parameters,
Yeah. That's why when you get caught up in layoffs, it's like they don't think of you as a person with a family.
Oh,
they
no.
Think of you as a paycheck that they need to obliterate.
Exactly. And that's the thing, that's why I never in any company I believe them to be, it's like my family. I know that a lot of people think that they're in a family when they're in a company. You're not. At some point you can be chopped off and people are not going to feel bad about it, And a friend of mine used to say like the cemetery is full of irreplaceable people, right? In the cemetery, like, that's the thing. Like we
Yeah.
think we think you're too much, but you know, there's someone out there that would be happy to take our jobs, and so that's why we have to keep you know, being good at what we do. I mean, like I think the main thing that saved me many times in this industry from many layoffs, man, it's yeah, the quality of the work is important, but being a problem solver, you know, is like someone who can actually have like quick turnarounds in terms of solutions for something. Every new show that you work on, you're gonna have a different set of challenges, and then if the people bring that problem and they drop on your lap, you know, it's like say like, okay, so we have this shot here, we have no idea how we're gonna approach this. What do you think? If you're good at connecting dots, you know, it's like you can find like, oh no, this is like it's simpler than you can think. I mean, like I'm pretty sure you can approach this way, that way. You can do like a kind of like a hybrid approach in here. There's that other show that we worked on the past, and then we can do something about that. And I think that's what saved me many times. You know, it's like we have like a very small group nowadays of like a core people, I would say. And these people, you know, they are kept in there. No matter what happens, people are kept in there, you know. And we saw many, you know, like instances of you know, layoffs and stuff. But I don't know. I mean, like nobody's safe, you know. It's like this industry is very volatile in a certain way, and there's a lot of you know, it's like work being sent overseas because of the tax breaks, and you know, it's like the whole thing about the industry is that it's not run by artists, right? I wish it was. It's run by investors, right? Like basically bankers. And then as an investor, I mean, like you're basically a number cranker, right? So you're just like, okay, so how can I invest the minimum amount of money in this project and maximize my profits? It's all a matter of like maximizing profit, right? And then at the end of the day, that start to affect like the quality of the work, right? Like turnaround of the work, like you know, the deadlines become shorter and shorter, and the demands bigger and bigger, right? Like in the past, you would be able to show like a simple concept, and the director would actually figure it out and say like, oh yeah, I understand what you're saying here. Nowadays, I mean, like it's almost like they forgot everything, and then you have to show something super elaborate, you know, with animation and everything, you know, like a 3D concept instead of like 2D concept. Otherwise, they cannot understand what you're trying to say. So the demands are like bigger, and deadlines shorter, and salaries don't go up, right? If anything, they go down.
And that's why they say is you can have it good, you can have it fast, or you can have it cheap. Pick two.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, like, humans are resilient little boogers too, right? So, you know, it's like even that, man. I mean, like, there are people nowadays who can do a much faster work than I could have ever done in the past. You know, it's like the tools are more advanced and everything. So even that, you know, it's like it's almost like people are delivering fast, and it's still with a certain level of quality. You know, it's like, which is pretty impressive sometimes. So yeah, man, I don't know where the future goes, but what I tell you guys, like when it comes to those classes, I'm trying to help you guys like to see things from different angle when it comes like the way you do the work. Probably not as much as for production as it is for yourselves, you know, something like that can help you as artists more than helping you to become an artist for someone, you know, become an artist for yourself. I think like those classes are more towards that, because otherwise I would be teaching basically like pipeline stuff, right? I would teach you like exactly what you do during the pipeline. And although there is a lot of similarities to the stuff I'm doing here, I'm actually putting the control all over, you know, it's like the entire project on your hands. You know, it's like instead of like relying in a pipeline, if you never work in a big production, you model something and then you generate your displacement maps and you send to someone down the pipe. And then that person sometimes is busy with some other project, whatever it is. And then you don't see your model render in the next like 2 days, for example. Sometimes you get like next day or something. Because someone has to plug all those textures in there, and then the texture artists have to go there and help, and then it passes to the TD, right? And the technical director are gonna, you know, change the lighting and the skin and all this stuff. And then there's so many people involved, you know. It's like, and then the lighter, you know, someone is gonna do some more work in there. And then you're going to have to pass the model to an animator. We're going to have like a little rig. So you're going to pose it because the client wants to see that posed in the turntable or something. So it takes days, it's like, and then when you're doing something like this, you're basically your boss, right? So you're just like, you're going to do like a pass in your displacement map, and you're going to export this one, going to render straight away in Arnold, going to see what's missing, go back to ZBrush, do another pass. If you already have color, for example, you're going to know exactly what you have to change for the next iteration. So that's why I encourage you guys, it's like to plug those models like straight away to Maya and just iterate on that, because at some point you're going to have all the texture maps here in ZBrush. You're going to paint everything in ZBrush, and then the displacement and everything. And then in a single night, you can do like multiple iterations. It's like I do a render, for example, I look at the render and I take notes, like mental notes of all that's missing, for example, in the displacement map, everything that's not working, the areas that are not blending correctly, and also everything that's missing in the color map. And then the next time I generate those maps, I already do like a huge jump. It's like I can see a lot of stuff fixed, like from one version to the next one. But if you're in production, you don't see that. I mean, like it can take weeks and weeks until you see like an actual progress to the whole thing, because it depends on so many people, So yeah, it's much better to do stuff on your own for sure. It's not that I cannot work in groups or teams, because I'm pretty good at working teams, but if I can have the control over my stuff, man, it's just like, it's a different world, that's where I have the most fun, it's like doing my own stuff.
Yeah, I've seen
when you're a freelancer.
What's that?
You have more control when you're a freelancer?
You see, like I'm such a wuss because coming from a banking career, like since I was 15 years old, I always had a very, very stable job. So I worked from 15 all the way to 31 in the bank, so 16 years of my life. And then I was never fired in my life. It's like I just jumped jobs when I got better offers in jobs, but I never lost a job. So I'm kind of like, it's like I like this comfort of having something that's a little bit more solid. And then some people tell me, it's like you should go freelance. You would get a lot of work and all this stuff. You can do it like a much better financially and everything. And I definitely keep that in mind. It's like, but it's not something that I can see myself doing just right now. But maybe, it's like if I lose my job at ILM at some point.
Yeah, I'm doing the opposite. I'm coming from freelance and trying to get in a studio.
Oh, you're trying to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. It's like that little comfort, right? Like to get some.
Well, and plus I'm changing because I was a graphic designer, so.
Oh, okay.
Codes at the same time.
Like changing the discipline a little bit and the area. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, well, me coming from banking, right? It's a little bit different from this.
Yours was a bigger jump.
Yeah, but the thing is, what's interesting is that when I was in the bank, they had this department, it was a marketing department. So the last 10 years I worked in the bank, actually last 7 years I worked in the bank, was in the marketing department. So I was actually doing, we managed to convince them to buy Maya. The first version of Maya was Maya 1.0 and Softimage 3.8. We managed to convince the bank to buy it because we told them this is going to be very useful for us for the illustrations, and because they are coming up with this idea of a TV, like a TV channel just for the bankers in there, like to teach them stuff. So we kind of like, yeah, this is going to really be helpful, So we managed to convince them, and we did. We started this new TV channel inside of the bank, and we did lots of flying logos and stuff. Nothing organic or anything, but like lots of, flying logos, and some kind of like crappy illustrations and stuff. It's such a trip, right? Like when you look back at what you did in your life, I mean, like the little, trying to retrace all the steps that brought you to the present day, right? Like it's always a trip to look back.
Well, that's why I fell right into ZBrush, because it's like drawing.
Yeah, exactly, man. And that's why I like to do most of my sculpting with the clay buildup, because of like it's so sketchy, right? Like it's so good, man. It's almost like I did some clay stuff as well, but I mean, like, I got so fast with the way I sculpt in ZBrush that for me to bring any like clay sculpting skills to the same level, I would have to spend way too much time like sculpting with clay, and that would be some time that I would probably like I would use like for sculpting in CG. I would create like many more things in CG than I would, you know, it's like using the same time. So it's just a matter of like priorities. Maybe at some point I'm gonna be like, oh man, I'm over this. I'm gonna just do some clay sculpting. But at this point, if I'm just trying to flush out ideas and my techniques are not good enough in clay, I definitely gonna rely on CG to do that. But you get someone like Simon Lee, right? Like a Spider Zero. The guy is incredible, right? Like it's one of the most expressive clay sculptors I know, because you know it's like everything has motion. It's so incredible, and he creates that, like you see this his videos. It's kind of like super fast, man. He's like so fluid with his techniques that he creates those things in clay like probably faster than I would do in ZBrush, and it's just like a treat to watch. You know, it's like I love seeing that stuff.
Kristen?
Yeah.
I had a question, like if you ever, whenever you start a project like this one or any other project, like with a full body or just the face or a character or anything, like how much do you plan in advance regarding, like there are some, I try to do it most of the times, but sometimes like I reach midway and I guess that, you know, okay, this thing is missing, I should have planned it before. So does it happen, or how much planning does it goes before starting the project, like in terms of topology or in terms of sculpt, in terms of the clothing, whatever we have idea of the character or anything that we are going to build?
That's a good question. I mean, like it all depends. If it's a professional piece, I mean, like obviously they're gonna have to rely on all the reference I can get from the studio, and the planning is gonna have to be, for example, like we built like so many things over the years that there is nothing completely new that we're gonna be creating from scratch at this point. You know, it's like we can just chop some previous character that was used, or some clothes that you know, it's like they don't look exactly like the clothes we need to build at this point, but we can use parts of it. So it's basically like it becomes a little bit of kind of like a library, you know, it's like a kit bash kind of thing. But then when it comes like to the personal stuff, I mean, like my projects there at this point, like, you know, it's like I'm just doing portraits because of the classes I'm teaching. Eventually, when I'm not teaching classes anymore, I'm probably going to go back and do more like a full body projects and stuff. But yeah, in this case, I just, I don't do any like planning, I would say, like on the paper, like I don't have concepts and stuff. All the concepts I work straight on in CG. Like, so I just bring to ZBrush and I start sketching something, and then it becomes something else. Or, you know, I like this thrill of seeing the project revealing itself, like the character revealing itself. In this case here, for example, I have no idea how this character is going to turn out, but I'm hoping for the best, and then just gonna try to put as much love as I can and hope for the best. But yeah, man, I don't have like a, you know, it's like a formula or anything like that. But I would say like, yeah, professionally it's mostly like we get all the stuff we need, you know.
And I think it's just experience of doing it.
Yeah.
You find out like saving your files. It's like once you've lost a file or two, you figure, oh, I should back up my files.
Yeah. Oh, I had that experience. That was pretty bad.
That reminds me phrase from Michelangelo. And he said when he was like sculpting the David sculpture.
Yeah.
So he said he was already there. I just had to find him out. But
oh yeah.
Already in the stone.
It was in the stone. Yeah. You just had to.
He got rid of the parts that weren't the.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a little bit like this, you know. It's like you kind of like polish, and then there is one part of the whole process that's the part that's the most exciting for me, is when the character starts to come to life, you know. And it goes kind of like for a while it looks okay-ish, right? Like you kind of keep working on it and just adding like all those technical pieces. But then there is a part of the project that actually transcends that, you know. It's like it becomes more than just technique. You know, the technique is going to be really strong. I mean, like very important to be able to achieve, let's say, like a realistic shader for the eyes and stuff. And the eyes definitely going to be like one of the key points to bring the character to life. But there's something that's a little bit more magical that happens, you know, it's like when you see the character really coming to life, you know, with the gaze, and then you see like you can smell it, right? Like the life is almost there. And then with the tools that you know exactly or have a good idea of what's missing to actually go that little extra step that's missing to make the character breathe, you know. And so that's the thrilling part for me. Right now, we're just like trying to figure out skin and make things to look more organic and everything. But the exciting part to me is when you start playing with the shaders and the colors and the lighting, you know, as I can really bring all those elements to life. It's pretty magical.
Going back with someone you said before, have you ever read this comic book called Mouse from
No.
Art Spiegelman?
Mm-mm.
So it's about a guy who was going through the Holocaust, and there is something he says in the comic book that it was all of the jobs that I knew, like crafting shoes and all of that stuff, all of the things that I knew how to do,
Mm-hmm.
like helped me or made me survive to the war, to the Holocaust. So you said like we had no money and we needed to craft all of this stuff by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need to be, I don't know, aware of knowing a lot of things or crafting your own stuff. I don't know.
It can be the difference between life and death. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely, man. It's very important, you know, like know things. And I'm doing a lot more cooking these days because I'm on my own with the kids. So when my wife is at the hospital, I was not doing a lot of cooking before, but I'm actually enjoying it, you know. It's like just I was telling my wife like the whole thing about the furniture. Obviously, you can buy a table, you can buy, you know, things, but then there is something about it's a little bit primal, I think. You know, it's like when I became a father, man, I had no idea I would ever be a father. You know, it's like I remember like trying with my ex-wife, and she never got pregnant and stuff. And I thought like maybe it's some problem I have, you know. But then when I became a father of two boys now, there was a lot of stuff that's more primal, I think. You know, it's like this pride about providing something to your family, you know, something that's needed. Not only like the financial part, but let's say when I build like a table for us, which is the table we use every night for dinner, you know, I was so proud of that, you know. It's like to provide to my family something I built with my own hands. So I think that's important, you know, it's like to have in mind, you know, it's like this ability, you know, I didn't know how to build it until I learned it, but that you have this power, you know, it's like to create something that, you know, that can be useful to your family. Or yeah, it's cool. I really like that.
Yeah, I always get frustrated when I watch Titanic, because all those people, all those wooden chairs, all those wooden beds, all those wooden cabinets. It's like,
that's true.
I totally made myself a boat.
It is true, man.
And then Jack, she won't let Jack on that door, and he ends up dying.
Oh yeah, man, she's awful. I'm gonna smooth this thing out. Check this. I think I'm gonna just like bring this into make it a little bit softer in here. I'm not liking this how crunchy it is in here. So just
Chris,
yes.
Where do you paint the skin? I mean, we're creating all of these details here in ZBrush, but are you grabbing pictures from, I don't know, people's faces out of internet, or how are we gonna?
Oh, for painting the color?
Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be all hand painted. Good luck with that.
Be hand painted.
Good luck with that, right? Yeah. Yeah, man, like it's gonna be the same deal. I mean, like there's a lot you can do with the handmade stuff. Let's just do a little blend here. So like, oh man, what's happening here? Oh Jesus, I forgot to store my morph target. See, I got distracted talking to you guys. That would suck big time. Let me just try to recover what I did here. Yes.
Question about painting. I've been wanting to ask that as well. So you do the poly painting in HD, and Is that because remember you were talking about Rick Baker and like the little ingrown hairs, and I was always curious, like, is that, I know you could use Substance Painter, but I think ZBrush is just as capable by hand, manually, right? Is that how you do it, manually?
Yes, yes. The thing about ZBrush is that up to a certain point, I mean, like we didn't have all the resources we have nowadays. But you know, with the ZBrush becoming so capable in terms of like having HD geometry, like see, like I just did a little blending here. That area is gonna look better now. So the HD geometry, basically, like we're gonna paint all the color in HD. And if you're painting in HD, that means you can have like, you know, a gazillion, you know, possibilities in there, like in terms of detail. So we're definitely going to be painting in HD geometry. I'm going to show you a few examples here. Let's see. Just save this guy.
While you're gonna show us that, I'm curious about the some of the brushes that are in ZBrush, like the size of the alphas that you paint with. Since we're in HD and it's so subdivided, are they like too small? Are they like, do you have a question or make your own sort of alphas that are larger? Like say, you know,
for painting,
I just wonder, are they pixelated a bit, these alphas that come in ZBrush, or no?
No, not really. And I mean, like at the end of the day, because the surface is going to have so much detail, it's almost like you don't need like a hyper detailed color map, you know. Definitely going to go kind of like, it's almost like a fractal approach as well. We're going to have like very broad spots, but then we're going to have some areas that are very, very thin spots. And then, you know, it's like micro veins painted by hand and everything. But let me show you this here. Let's take a look at this. Back up. Let's see. No, that's not this one. This one. So when I did, let's see, personal projects, the Stan Winston guy. Let's see if I have a picture of the skin itself. But so this guy here. So you know, we have all this. It looks very fuzzy. I mean, like this is very, very the you know, I would do differently right now. But in terms of the skin itself, everything was hand painted, right? So it's a matter of like observing again, like the fractal effect, right? You start with the broad brushes, and basically like the brushes you're talking about, they are not even you know, it's like anything too specific. We're gonna be using this spray brush a lot. So basically, if I switch here for my color spray, that's basically what I use to paint a lot of the color for the skin. You know, it's like it's a common spray brush with an alpha attached to it, and that's about it. So if I look at, you know, like if I put like a crazy color here, let's see, something like this. Actually, I would have to paint some other color first. But yeah, so basically this, you know, it's like it's going to be like a broad kind of like a, I'm going to just give you a preview of what my intention is to do here. So first, I'm going to switch like my coloring here from a spray to 0 so I don't have any variations. But I start doing something like this. I start with a single color first. So it's going to be just one color. And then I'm going to go to a RGB intensity very low, let's say like 6. And I start with kind of like a broad approach. So something like this, very broad. And then as I get closer in more detail, I get the brush smaller and a little bit more intense. To do that kind of stuff, and then I'm gonna get a little bit stronger, and then a little bit more, a little bit smaller. But for the most part, it's a lot of the same kind of a brush. But I'm gonna show you like in you know, it's like just the way we are doing with the skinning here. It's blocking all those things like the color itself, like using those different sizes and everything and intensities. But then at the end, you go for the specific stuff. So you're gonna actually, you know, it's like paint like micro veins and then little spots, you know, for example, let's see from the side here, if I can see like those tiny little spots in here. So like those are all hand painted. And then the micro veins in here, those are actually done with, I'm going to show you the brush that I use. It's, I was looking for a good pattern in nature that could look like veins. And they actually, a lightning, you know, I found some pictures of lightning on the internet. And then I actually captured that because it was kind of like black background with the lightning in there. And I capture them and I transform into brushes, and I'm using them to create those micro veins, you know. And some of them are hand painted and everything, but it's always a matter of like adding the right amount of variation, you know. It's like, so you see like the skin around the eyes, it's much more pale. There's a little bit of blue hues assigned to it. The eyelids themselves, I normally try to paint them a little bit darker than the rest of the skin. Not a little bit, it's like, I would say like 3 shades darker basically. And then there's some greens assigned, you know, it's like, so you're gonna get like some faint yellow and greens where you're gonna have like the fat tissue and stuff like that. And then around cartilage as well, if you look at the tip of his nose, you can see from other angles here. Let's see if, from the bottom. So the tip of his nose in here, you see like there's some yellowish kind of right there. So that's the cartilage in there. So all those little hints, you know, is like add to the realism. And then you always have to look at the history of the character as well. So for example, I know that he was a smoker, right? So smokers tend to have like a, you know, grayer, a little bit grayer lips and some of those spots as well. So I actually started to incorporate some of that. And then you have to make sure that things have a rhythm as well, right? So you're gonna have the grayish, slightly bluish around those areas, but then you switch to a much more saturated area like this one. And then if you remove, for example, those spots here, try to remove visually, you know, just like mentally, those little spots in here. Everything here is a little bit more random, doesn't have a lot of interest, but those are the kind of details that pull your eye into it, you know? Same with the veins. I mean, like if I removed all the veins in here, it would look much more plain than it is. If I remove those tiny little, you know, red spots in
freckles,
here, yeah, freckles and everything. And so it's like building layer by layer, all those things, you know. And this lighting here is the best kind of lighting when you cannot make the work you know, look like realistic. This type of lighting really helps with it, because this is kind of like a simulation of flashlight. And then the way I do this, I actually I attach the light to the camera itself, offset to the right. So I put the camera. Imagine like if you extend your arm all the way to a diagonal and you hold a flashlight right there. So around that spot is where I attach to it. And then for the HDRI in the background, I use a very, very low intensity just to have a little bit of a bounce and some reflections. And then in the display, instead of rendering at 100% intensity, I render like, let's say like a 15 or 20%, because what happened with the flashlight is that you're gonna overexpose or expose correctly whatever is the focus, right? Which is the skin in here. And everything else in the background goes underexposed. It's the same effect that happens when you're doing like macro photography, for example, like of insects, right? You focus in there and it looks very, you know, it's like illuminated, and then the background goes kind of dark. It like looks, you know, unless you have something obvious like to illuminate the background. So this lighting here is pretty cool because first, the source is very small. I would say like it's the size of the palm of my hand, like this, the size of the source. And it's one of the best ways to actually diagnose the skin specular, because sometimes you are rendering things under HDRI, and then under HDRI, man, depending on the lighting, obviously, the mesh can look completely flat. You know, it's like because sometimes the light is too diffuse. You don't have like a strong point that's actually focused into anything, and then it looks very flat. But then as soon as you add something like this, right, a flashlight, all of a sudden, like the light, the skin goes super bright, and it looks like, oh my god, like it looks like plastic and it's super strong. So the thing is, like if you diagnose everything with a flashlight like this, and you make it look correct, like it is indeed like a flashlight, you can use like you know, like examples from a red carpet or something, you know, people being photographed with flashlights. You can actually try to mimic that intensity. And then when you switch to the actual lighting later on, things start to work better. You know, it's like that's before I was using it probably like just one specular, and then by using this technique here, I was able to actually mimic the it's not just a specular, right? Like you're trying to mimic the how you say, like the sebum, like the sebum, which is like the sweat part, right? So you're gonna have like a tight spec, and you're gonna have a much broad spec on top of it. And one of the best ways I found to actually capture that was to use like a setup with this lighting here. We're gonna do this in the next couple of days. I can show you guys how I created this, or probably like open this shot here and show you exactly how it's plugged in there. And so we can actually see what I'm talking about. You know, it's like it's really cool because it's the kind of lighting that first, like it helps to sell the character as something that's realistic because, you know, it's easier to sell this way because you don't have a lot of contrast on the sides or anything. But also for the, you know, the fact that you can actually diagnose like specular problems with your skin, you know. Yeah, so it's cool.
Thanks.
Yep. So yeah, guys, that's
I have that flattening problem with the lights in ZBrush.
yeah, exactly.
Like you get the highlight on the right, but once you put in the secondary light, then all the middle stuff goes.
Yes. Yep, exactly. Oh, one thing I forgot to tell you guys, like this is the material I use for sculpting ZBrush. Like I didn't mention this. Basically, like we have access to all these fancy materials in here, right? Like from the matte cap stuff. I never liked the matte cap stuff to sculpt. I normally switch to this startup material, this basic material. So I start with the basic material, right? Which is like old school ZBrush since the very beginning. And then the thing that I do, I go to my material here and I do a few modifications. So for example, if I pick this one, you can actually crank your diffuse a little bit more. Let's say like, I think I already did in this case here. And then the specular as well, you can actually crank it a little bit more and make it a little bit more metallic. You can even play with the curvature in here for the spec. And then at some point you get to something that looks more like the old blend in Maya. And I kind of like to sculpt with this, you know, because there is no simulation happening with those crazy matte caps, you know, like simulated lighting from all sides. It's basically like a very blend material, very plain. It's easier for me to understand the forms, you know. Another thing you can do is to actually, obviously you can change the lighting if you want to, but I kind of like the normal positioning there. But then there's this this other thing you can do with the rendering here. There is this preview shadows. And you know that you can do like get the shadows a little darker or a little lighter, right? And you have this deep shadow here. Yeah, so basically like you can play with the length sometimes, you know, like to get a little bit more of to look more interesting. But overall, I try it sometimes like if I'm not seeing the forms that much, I actually bring the object shadow all the way down. So I can actually eliminate those fake shadows underneath and I can actually see the forms a little bit. I mean, like shadows would help if they are correct, right? Like to see the forms. But in this case here, it's very hard to see anyway. So sometimes I just go back if I'm getting a little confused with those fake shadows, like there's 2D shadows in there. I actually just eliminate them, you know, and I keep the way it was like 0.3 or something like that. But then obviously, if you want to check things, you can always do like a BPR render, which should work in HD as well. So we're inside of HD here.
Yeah, the only matte cap I like to sculpt with is the green clay.
The green clay? I the one that I hate the most is the red gray, man. This thing is awful. I don't know who had the idea, like, oh yeah, let's just use this one as the default one for ZBrush. Like, what the heck, dude? I mean, like,
the green one. Look at the green one.
The green one. Let's see. This
green
one,
clay.
Green metallic.
Yeah. No, green clay.
Oh, green clay.
Over on the end. Keep going up.
Oh, this one. This one, green.
Well, either that one or the other one.
Yeah, you see, like some of the detail kind of, yeah, it kind of vanishes a little bit, huh? The detail. Let's see.
Try the one that's on the first row, on the end of the first row.
This one here? Yeah, I would stick with mine. This one has a little bit of a cavity, right? I can see the cavity right here. Yeah, I mean, like if you're rendering like concept stuff, like let's say like a creature, and I want to do like a turntable in ZBrush, I definitely gonna experiment with some of those other ones. But for sculpting itself, I rather just like tweak the basic material to have something more like this. And then I can just add a little color like this, and then save this as a startup material. Basically, you can go to your, is it document, right? Actually, no, it's the material.
It's right in the material.
Yeah, so save the startup material, and then just do that, and next time you should be there, you know. But
sorry, Chris.
Yes.
I'm sorry, excuse me. When you just adjusted the specular, did you bring it down or up?
Let's see what I have here. So I brought the diffuse up to 90, and then the specular up to 41, and I think the curvature I tweaked it. Let's see.
Yeah.
This one here. Yeah, just made a little point in there.
Alrighty.
Yeah, just to have a little bit more of yeah, like that, a little bit more metallic. Maybe I went a little bit too dark with the whole thing. So let's try, if I'm starting with the white color instead, maybe I can bring the diffuse down in here. Something around, yeah, something around that, 58. So it's kind of like I can see all the forms, it's a little shiny, but maybe if it's a little bit shiny, you can always, go to your spec and remove a little bit. So let's say like around 30.
That helps you see flat spots then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for example, like when I see the light traveling between the pores in here and the nose, right? You can tell that the nose is definitely going to get more reflection when we start adding like the specular maps in there. So it's a good diagnose tool in there. And then tomorrow we're basically going to be doing a little bit more of the same thing, which is like blending things with it's like around the eyes, but also we're going to do much more work around the lips. So we're going to focus on lips and nose tomorrow. And it's like in the course of the next days, obviously we're going to be working on everything at the same time. You see, like I started to detail more of the eye bags today, a little bit more of the secondary forms. But as we get a little bit closer to breaking up the symmetry overall, then we're going to go to town with the detail stuff. It's like with a mid-resolution detail, which is very important. It's the kind of stuff like when you look at the model, just these little things I did today, like carving a little bit deeper right there for the eye bags. It's already starting to work from a distance, but before it was very plain. Wasn't very convincing there. So it's very important to actually use those bigger forms, like to carve things a little bit deeper. We're going to add a lot of asymmetry and kind of like a randomness to the skin in a bigger way. It's like from a distance like this, everything is still looking a little bit clean in here, but we want to see some of those striations around here. It's like some of the skin being pulled from the zygomatic bone and towards this area here. For example, like my jowls in here, I want to make sure that they read with the gravity. They don't have a lot of gravity just yet. But the main step that I want to emphasize is basically like trying to get all the pores in place first. As long as the scale and the depth is good enough. I mean, like you saw that I just removed a lot of the depth of this area here. And then I'm probably going to add some more passes in here to help to improve that combination, the transition in there. But you can always make things a little bit softer. If I notice that this area is still a little bit too strong, I can go back in there and smooth it out, But first do the pores and then we can go from there. If you want to start with the spot, for example, with the eyes, right? Make sure you have the pores all around this area, and then you can start blending things. But yeah, having the pores is definitely going to help you to go to the next step, because then you can break the symmetry and be comfortable with that. Unless you really hate yourself and then you want to do the pores all asymmetrical, and that's going to take you a long time to do, I tell you that.
Can I ask you something? It always bothers me that the nostrils stay like they have a light inside.
Uh-huh.
Is there any way to get rid of that at all, or?
That's a good question. I don't think in ZBrush you can, right? Because the lighting kind of goes everywhere. But I would say, like, if you dig the nostrils deeper, you're probably gonna be able.
I've tried that.
Yeah, if you can make like an actual deeper hole in there, because they are very shallow right now. At some point, I'm gonna make them deeper anyway. I think my base mesh had the nostrils much deeper, but then when I reprojected to this guy here, it actually incorporated to whatever was the sketch. But yeah. All right, guys. Before I go, actually, and I give you the last word in there. Tomorrow, I'm going to be sending out the emails for this Saturday. So tomorrow, like probably in the morning, I'm going to try to send out this. It's basically like an invite for a different Zoom meeting, and that's going to have like it's like both the morning and night. It's going to be the same number. So you guys pick and choose. It's like which one's going to work the best for you. So yeah,
Christian.
Yeah.
Just one thing. Hello.
Yeah, sure.
Sir, when you edited the basic material right now, did you clone it, or you did like it overwrites, or it like saves to a different material?
I think it saves to a different material. You see like the startup materials in there, but I have now a basic material here.
Okay, the basic material remains the same. We just, when we save it, like it saves to a different, right? Different material.
That's a good question. Now I'm confused because I think the basic material is the one that I saved before. That was my old startup material, and I think like this one I just changed is the actual startup material. I'm not sure if that becomes a separate material, and then when you reopen ZBrush, it recreates the original one, or if it just replaces straight away. I'm not completely sure.
It copies over whatever material you have selected.
Okay, so
Okay.
So you always have the same number of materials down there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you've covered over one of them basically.
You overrides it.
And like you see, you have basic material 2.
This is
probably copied over something.
This is a good one for sculpting too. Look, it's not confusing at all.
It already had the pores.
Yeah, look at that. Oh, that's kind of cool. Look, I'm using a fibers one in here. That's kind of an interesting one too.
What's it doing?
Yeah, it's like a fibers, but just the shader itself looks interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
Jelly beans.
Jelly bean. Oh man, that was that's a bad one. But you can sculpt with normals.
Yeah.
Hey people, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I just have an idea because we should add each other in social media in case if we are like following out this process and have questions over certain details. So I don't know, guys, if you wanna like, I don't know, create a group or add each other or something, because I think we should create community between all of us. I don't know.
That's cool.
I think like it's a good idea, but the thing is like I tell people, I posted the other day on my Instagram, on my Facebook, I said like, I wish I had like a 5 questions poll that would be visible like as a pop-up every time someone tries to add me as a friend, you know, because you know it's like we are friends when it comes like to art and all this stuff, but then some people have very different political opinions, and nowadays it's becoming a nightmare. So sometimes like you add like, oh yeah, I remember like he was super nice during the class, right? And then I added, it was like, oh my God, what a, you know. and the opposite is true because I'm the conspiracy theorist, right? Like I'm the one posting all kinds of crap. And yeah, I tell you, like I had like 2 years ago, 5,000 friends on Facebook. I maxed out, right? And I had like a bunch of people constantly asking to add and everything. And at some point, you know, it's like it becomes a little freaky because some people I never, you know, interacted very much started making comments about my kids and stuff, you know, and I thought that's fucked up. And then I started kind of like eliminating people over time. And at this point, like 2 years later, I'm down to half of that, so 2,500 people. So I would say like I keep my Entropus page very visible on the Instagram page and also the group for our classes. But my Instagram, my Facebook private profile, I try not to add anybody else. You know, it's like I'm just trying to keep it like as quiet as I can.
I mean, yeah. But for example, like having a Discord space, like a group or something.
Yeah, I think
that not that private, but something that we can spend time together and be more close. I mean, it's just an idea.
Yeah, of course.
Isn't that what the group is on the Facebook? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so because I think like in the second class I ran, one of our colleagues, he actually created a Discord, and it was very cool. You know, it's like people start posting stuff in there, and very slowly start to die out, and then people start to focus more on the group itself. You know, so you can see like there's a lot of stuff being posted in the group all the time, so much so that I cannot even like, you know, I have to go back, and there's a lot of stuff that I have to make up for it, because you know, it's like I can review stuff like every week or so, you know. It's like if I do every day, I'm gonna be constantly there, and it becomes a snowball. So you reply, and then a lot of more questions come up, and then you try to reply again, and then, you know. But the cool thing is that all of us are based like in this group, and a lot of people are very willing to actually chime in as well, especially people who went to the same trouble already, like people from the previous classes. There's some very helpful people there as well, you know. So yeah, my intention is to go back in there and reply to all of those ones asking for reviews, And also to chime in some of the amazing work that was posted recently, like finished work that I never commented on it. So it's really hard like to stretch myself all kinds of directions. But I would say like the group is it's being really good in terms of the people keeping in touch, you know.
Okay.
Yep. But yeah, if you can convince people to actually go to Discord and stuff, I you know, totally go for it, you know. It's just like I saw this happen in the past, and then people start excited, and then all of a sudden like, you know what, well, I'm on Facebook all the time, so I'm gonna stick with Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can always get hold of me on Instagram.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, like my Instagram and the Entropus Facebook page, I mean, like they're pretty much open, you know. So I'm always in touch with people, and but yeah, definitely, man, the politics get in the way every time, and I have my own ideas about stuff, you know. It's like, and I don't trust left or right, so I get in trouble with everybody. And
my favorite conspiracy theory is that Barney was there to dumb down our kids.
There you go.
There's actual websites for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, like some of them I watch as kind of like an entertaining thing, right? Like some of conspiracies is just like so absurd, just for entertaining purposes. But we know there are like real conspiracies out there, like the classified stuff, obviously. But one of the most entertaining to me is the Paul is Dead, like the Paul is Dead from the Beatles. That Paul McCartney died in a car accident, and it was replaced by a clone, just as talented as he is. That one is very entertaining to me, man. I love.
Elvis is still alive.
Oh yeah, exactly. But it's funny, man. Like being an artist, that means like you have to keep at least some kind of like a space in your brain to be like open-minded to something fucked up to be happening in the world, you know. So I like contemplating stuff. I don't buy too much into shit anymore. In the past, I would like be impressed with stuff. I was like, nah, this one is more likely bullshit. But I still keep that little piece in there, like, what if, you know, what if it is? Yeah.
Are you a flat Earth person then?
No, I'm not. But I tell you what, man. I you know, taking planes after this whole thing, like this new wave of flat Earth came up. You know, it's like I was in the plane a few times, man, and I was like trying to find the curvature, and I couldn't, and I was pretty high. And I was like, "Where's the curvature?" And I even like put a piece of paper, like, interesting. But you know, some people say like, you know, if you see a curvature, maybe like then the conspiracy theory is gonna say like, oh, it's the window. There's a little curvature in the window in the airplane, so you're gonna deform the horizon. But not even that, you know. But whatever,
man. Picture of the edge for me.
Yeah, exactly. Some people say like, oh, you're gonna get to Antarctica, right? It's gonna be just like a massive wall of ice, and then behind the wall, you're gonna find the other continents in there. I was like, all right, let's go for it.
It's like when I played Skyrim, I'd climb the mountains to see what was on the other side.
Yeah, yeah.
Just nothingness out there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway. All right, guys. I see you tomorrow. Let's do some more sculpting, and then I send you the emails tomorrow for the reviews. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Chris.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Cheers, guys. Bye.